Hi, welcome back to the basement. I'm Steve Lewis. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about the Beach Boys and their relatively scant involvement in an early to mid 60s film genre known as the beach party movie. Now, a lot of studios produced beach party movies during this period, but the pioneer and the gold standard was definitely American International Pictures, AIP. AIP had been around since the 50s, producing teenage fare, sci-fi movies, comedies, horror movies, mostly for drive-ins, definitely aimed at the teenage market. In August of 1963, they released their first beach party movie, titled appropriately enough, Beach Party. It starred the pair that would rapidly become the Astaire and Rogers of beach films, Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. They went on to star in a great series of American International beach films. The second beach party movie, Muscle Beach Party, was released in March of 1964. This is the one that had some peripheral Beach Boys involvement in that Brian Wilson co-authored 5 of the songs that appear in the movie. These were co-writes with 2 of his very early collaborators, Gary Usher and Roger Christian. All 5 songs are credited to Usher, Christian, Wilson. Now, according to Gary Usher, they, being Brian and Gary Usher, produced the backing tracks for the film for these 5 songs, turned them over to Les Baxter, the film soundtrack person, who sweetened them and had the vocals overdubbed. But the backing tracks in the film are supposed to have been produced by Brian Wilson, Gary Usher, and apparently they also provided backing vocals. Now, the film itself is a very typical beach party film following the formula. You've got Frankie and Annette, of course. You've got John Ashley and Jody McCrae, who were sort of the Reggie and Jughead to Frankie's Archie. You've got Candy Johnson, who's this go-go dancer who cuts loose. You've got a selection of Borscht Belt comedians. You've got Don Rickles, who was like a semi-regular in these beach party films. You've got Buddy Hackett. You've got Maury Amsterdam. Of course, the real standout musical performances in Muscle Beach Party don't come from the performances of the Usher, Christian, Wilson songs. Rather, they come from the film debut of 13-year-old Stevie Wonder, who performs at the end of the film and also over the ending credits. Another feature of a lot of these beach party movies was a cameo appearance by a horror movie star, usually Vincent Price, Boris Karloff. Usually their presence would be hinted at during the movie, and at the end there would be this reveal, and they would usually be there promoting another AIP movie, because at the same time they were doing this beach party series, AIP was also involved in a series of Edgar Allan Poe films produced by Roger Corman, mostly starring Vincent Price. Interestingly, in Muscle Beach Party, the big reveal is Mr. Strangdower, who is Peter Lorre. He comes in at the end, does a really nice cameo appearance. And I noticed that in the ending credits, there's this very reverential title that says, you know, the producers of the film would like to extend their special thanks to Mr. Peter Lorre, who will appear as Mr. Strangdower in Bikini Beach. Now, Bikini Beach comes out in July 1964. Peter Lorre is not in it because, sadly, he passed away in March of 1964, just a day or so within the same time that Muscle Beach Party was released. So, as an aside, if anybody knows what happened, what was the rewrite, who replaced Peter Lorre? There's no Mr. Strangdower in Bikini Beach, but I'm wondering, is it the Keenan Wynn character? Anybody that knows about AIP beach movies, I'd be interested to know how that worked, because I just noticed it. Anyway, end of that digression. One of the interesting aspects of Muscle Beach Party is it was released in March of 1964, just a few weeks after the Beatles' first appearance on Ed Sullivan. So it's one of the very last times where you see American youth culture without any influence from the Beatles. By the time of the next Beach Party movie, which came out in July, Bikini Beach, you have Frankie Avalon playing a character called the Potato Bug, which is supposed to be a British rock star, and the influence of the Beatles is already strongly there just a few months later. But this is one of the last times you see America without the influence of the Beatles. So the Beach Boy involvement in this film was rather scant. You had Brian Wilson co-authoring 5 of the songs that were featured in the film. The 5 songs in question are Muscle Beach Party, the title track, Muscle Bustle, My First Love, Runnin' Wild, and Surfer's Holiday. Now in the film, Muscle Beach Party and My First Love are sung by Dick Dale, the famous surf guitarist who did Miser Lou. Big influence on the Beach Boys. They, of course, recorded a cover version of his signature tune, Miser Lou, themselves. So Dick Dale actually sings, and Dick Dale's a great guitarist. His singing is not as good as his guitar playing, let's say. Muscle Bustle in the film, also sung by Dick Dale along with Donna Loren. Frankie Avalon sings Runnin' Wild. And Frankie and Annette duet on Surfer's Holiday, which kind of is the big happy song that opens the film. Now, for contractual reasons, these recordings were never released on a soundtrack album. All of the recordings were redone by somebody involved with the film. For example, on her album entitled Muscle Beach Party, you've got Annette Funicello doing 3 of the 5 songs that Brian co-wrote for the movie. You've got Muscle Beach Party, Muscle Bustle, and Surfer's Holiday. Surfer's Holiday actually has backing by the Honeys, you know, Brian Wilson's group consisting of his wife, although I don't think they were married quite yet, but his eventual wife, sister-in-law, and her cousin, the group that Brian put together. The Honeys performed backing vocals on Annette's version of Surfer Holiday. Front and back cover. This is a Rhino reissue from the late 80s, mid 80s, something like that. Maybe even early 80s. So that gives you 3 of the 5 songs. If you're trying to, like I was, accumulate all the songs that Brian Wilson has a co-composer credit on. Secondly, you've got Frankie Avalon's album titled Muscle Beach Party, which has, again, Muscle Beach Party, but this also has Runnin' Wild, front and back. And where's Runnin' Wild? Oh, and it's also, I'm sorry, he's also got Surfer's Holiday on here, his own version of that, and Runnin' Wild. So you can get Surfer's Holiday, Muscle Beach Party on either of these 2, but you're only going to get Muscle Bustle on this one, and you're only going to get Runnin' Wild on that one. That leaves one song unaccounted for, which is My First Love. That ends up on a Gary Usher project called the Superstocks on their Surf Route 101 album. This is from obviously a CD reissue from the early 90s. That's the only place you can find that. Apart from Brian Wilson having co-written the tracks, there's no Beach Boy involvement on any of these 3 albums. So if, like I was, you're interested in getting the 5 Brian Wilson co-written songs from Muscle Beach Party, that's how you have to do it. You have to do the Annette album, the Frankie album, and the Superstocks album to cover all 5 of those songs. Now the Beach Boys were involved in another Beach Party movie the next year. It was released in May of 1965 called Girls on the Beach, which they of course performed the title song for, which is a terrific piece of work by the Beach Boys. The movie is not an AIP movie. It's Paramount. It's trying to jump onto the bandwagon, so to speak, of the success AIP was having with their beach movies. And they seem to have taken a different tack with this. They didn't hire the notable cast members, the people that you'd seen a lot of times. In fact, the cast is so unknown that really most of the credits on IMDb, the biggest credit that most of the cast members have is that they appeared in Girls on the Beach. Now the Beach Boys appear and perform Little Honda, Girls on the Beach, and The Lonely Sea. Leslie Gore is also in it. The Post Buddy Holly Crickets are in it. The music acts seemed to be the big draw for Girls on the Beach. Of course, Little Honda and Girls on the Beach ended up appearing on the All Summer Long album that year, performed by the Beach Boys, so not difficult to get the material from the Girls on the Beach film. So that's really it as far as the Beach Boys' involvement in beach party pictures. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's pretty much it. Now, the Beach Boys did cross paths one more time in 1965 with Annette Funicello, but this was for a Disney movie. They play and perform with Annette the title track for The Monkey's Uncle, which was released in August of 1965. And I was just the right demographic for this when it came out. I went and saw it. And so there on the cover on Buena Vista, the Disney label, you got Annette, and no, that's not Frankie. And I'm sure I'm not the first person that's made that joke, but I may be the first person that's made that joke in 50 plus years. That is the monkey, played by Judy the Chimp, who, as I found out, was like pretty much the chimp that you would see in any movie or on television from the mid-60s to the early 70s. Judy was Debbie the Bloop in Lost in Space, starting in 1965. She played herself, Judy, in the series Doctare, starting in 1966, for which she won a coveted Patsy Award. And she was on a kids series called Jumbo from 69 to 71. And then she apparently went into retirement. I'm not sure. She was out when all those Lancelot Link chimps started coming in. She apparently had had enough and hung up her acting whatever chimps wear. Her acting career was over. Back cover here, you've got Tommy Kirk. You've got Leon Ames, famous character actor from the time. Tommy Kirk, of course, was in a lot of Disney stuff, Swiss Family Robinson, etc. He was also in a few of the AIP movies, Pajama Party, Ghost in the Invisible Bikini. He was memorably in what's said to be the last beach party movie, Catalina Caper, which was turned into an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 in the early 90s. So that's Tommy Kirk. There's Annette and, of course, the famous Judy. And the song is pretty cool, actually. Let me show you this label. It's just beautiful. Disney Buena Vista label. There you go. Let me see if I can get that where you can see it. And what's the B-side is How Will I Know My Love from Annette's album, Something Borrowed, Something Blue. The song, as I say, is pretty good, and you can definitely hear it's the Beach Boys, no doubt about it. It sounds like a Beach Boys record performed with Annette, which is exactly what it is. Now, it's not written by the Beach Boys. It was written by brothers Robert and Richard Sherman, who wrote a lot of very memorable songs. They were sort of the Disney house composers at the time. They'd written You're 16, You're Beautiful, and You're Mine, which was a hit for Johnny Burnett, and then in the early 70s was a much bigger hit for Ringo Starr. They wrote most of the songs for Mary Poppins, The Jungle Book. For Cubby Broccoli, they wrote most of the music for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. These guys wrote a lot of music. And interestingly, I played Monkey's Uncle just before I started doing this video, and it's been stuck in my head ever since. And as I researched it, I discovered that these guys also wrote the Tiki 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 Room that gets played at Disneyland in the Tiki Room, and they also wrote It's a Small World After All. So these guys knew how to write an earworm. They knew how to write something that would get in your head and stay there. In a different kind of society, they could have gone into psychological torture, but they instead wrote memorable songs. So there you have it, a quick look at the Beach Boys' relationship to beach party movies and early 60s Hollywood movies in general. Thanks for watching. Please let me know if I missed anything. I'd love to find out that there's something I missed. Always trying to find out new things. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.